Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He's my co-host, Ryan Blake. Today's show brought to you by Superbook. There's a new World Series favorite as the Dodgers are now plus 500 after adding Shohei Ohtani and Tyler Glasnow this week. The Orioles have actually dropped to plus 1,400 odds at the same time. So perhaps now is the time to get in with a futures bet. When you sign up at Superbook, use the code PRESSBOX23 and you'll receive a same-day first bet match up to $250, win or lose. I'll tell you, $250 plus a match up to $250 from PressBox on a plus 1,400 odds for the Orioles to win the World Series. It's a nice chunk of change. So go out there and place your bets. Yeah.
Plus 1,400 is a good omen too. That's where I got the Orioles to win the East in the middle of last season, and that ended up cashing. They were like 6 games out. I got them at plus 1,400, and they immediately went on like a 7-8 game winning streak. That good omen for there. I might have to hop on and place my bet now.
Oh, for sure. Plus 1,400 odds. I'll take that. I mean, you bet $100, you win 1,400. That's awesome, man. So go out and place your bets today with Superbook. Before the show gets started, I was talking about Ryan with this in our green room. My grandmother passed away this morning at 96 years of age. It was something that we knew was coming. She took a turn for the worse about 10 days ago. Wasn't sick or anything like that. Just one of those things. She's 96 years old. So if I seem a little off today, I'm doing my best here. I was telling Ryan, there's nothing really that I can do. All my aunts and uncles are out making funeral arrangements. My father lives down in Fenwick, which is 2.5 hours from here. So there's nothing that I can do right now. And I didn't want to miss the show. And, when you're feeling a certain kind of way, do the things that make you comfortable, that make you feel at home. And it's one of the things that makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel at home. So we're going to press on here with the Bat Around today. My grandmother lived a very long, full, wonderful life, just an incredible woman. And my father has oftentimes told me she's the greatest mother that ever lived. So this show is in honor of Lucille Valley. We will all miss you and can't fill the void left in our hearts. But we're going to press on anyway because we know that's what you would want us to do. So, and with that, moving on to some Orioles news, the Birdland Caravan has been announced that it is returning January 25th to 28th. Events, locations, and player participants have yet to be announced. But if you go over to Orioles.com/Birdland, Orioles.com/Caravan, they have a countdown clock. So that's kind of neat, I guess. You can see a little countdown. When I went on last night, it said 40 days, 6 hours. So it's probably down to 39 days and 18 hours, whatever. I was not able to attend last year, but Ryan, you went. How was your experience with the Orioles Caravan?
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to my lovely wife who just delivered a peppermint iced coffee to me at my desk. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Megan. Birdland Caravan I thought was really awesome last year. I didn't make it to as many of the events as I would have liked. I did get to the one down at Checker Spot where they had a bunch of players, Elias, Hyde, guest bartending. That was a really, really cool experience. They had, I think, 3 or 4 different bars you could hop around to. They were alternating shifts in different places. I got a really cool video of Adley Grayson and DL having a chug off at the upstairs bar. It went a little viral, so that was pretty cool. Got a picture with Adley, picture with DL. Got to meet Terran Vavra, Ramon Arias. A really cool experience where fans can just kind of mingle, play some games, hang out with the players. A really cool experience. I miss FanFest still. I wish they would bring the typical FanFest back down at the convention center. I thought that was a really good time. But I know you might feel a little bit differently, but I'm excited that the Caravan's returning.
First and foremost, I miss FanFest too. I loved FanFest. You got to take a tour of the Orioles clubhouse, and they will let you go out to the dugout and go on the field. And that was awesome. Was that a reaction to your iced coffee?
I haven't had the peppermint coffee from Chick-fil-A before. That was solid.
I said you get to take a tour of the Orioles clubhouse, and you went. I was like, did he not know this is a thing?
I did do the clubhouse tour once or twice. A really cool experience. But yeah, that face I made was a reaction to this peppermint coffee.
I got to go to, that's my dog running in the background. I got to go to FanFest. Thank you, babe. I asked her for a tissue. I got to go to FanFest every year, basically, from 2013 on. So, like, after they started winning again in 2012, I went every year from 2013 on. And I won a signed Nick Markakis picture when they did the fan forum, like with players on stage and all that. Because Jim Hunter asked who the Orioles led the American League in home runs in 2012. How many did they hit? And I think the answer was like 212. And nobody got it but me. So I want to sign Nick Markakis picture. This hanging proudly in my basement. So
I miss those fan forums where they have the panels of specific departments, whether it was coaches, players, front office, whatever, and the fans could ask questions. I thought that was really, really cool. That's the one thing I do really miss about FanFest. I think that the Caravan is a little more personal because there's more opportunity to chat with players and coaches one-on-one. But I really do miss being able to sit in that audience and, ask questions, listen to other fan questions, and have them answered. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. There was something about, even though it was usually, can you hear my dog squeaking his toy?
I can. Yeah.
Is it super loud?
I mean, it doesn't bother me. Although it's funny, you told me last week that when you run that countdown at the beginning of the show, it mutes our microphones. It was squeaking for the first 10 seconds of that countdown.
Yeah, I realized because I could hear stuff on your end, and I was like, "Oh, it said mutes our microphones. It is not muted." So I muted my microphone when I realized that. Because I'm like, "You can definitely." That's our count. That's our countdown music. Bruce's squeaky toy going nuts in the background.
Works for me.
There was something about standing outside in line waiting to get into FanFest, and like the line would be wrapped around the building. And then you get in, and there's all this swag that they give away, and there's all these people there. You can play video games with some of the players. Usually it was like Robert Andino that you had to play video games.
Dude, I kicked Matt Albert's behind in Guitar Hero one time.
Nice.
That was so much fun.
Good. He was used to getting his behind kicked on a baseball field anyway. So, and then he goes to the Red Sox. It's actually somehow good. But as far as this Caravan, look, the Caravan's fun. I haven't been to it, but I know the fans love this stuff, and I know that it gives you an opportunity to be up close and personal with the players. And I don't know exactly how up close and personal you get. Like, I know that they had like Adley and some guys like bartending, and it's like, do I get to like see Adley mix a drink from 5 people deep at a bar? I'm okay if I don't see that.
Well, here's the trick. You've got to know what after the first rotation, you have to figure out what the rotation is of the Orioles that are there. Mm-hmm. Go to the bar that they're going to be rotating to next and get a good spot. That's the key.
Oh, okay.
At least that's how Megan and I planned it. That's how we were right in the front to watch Adley and the guys do their chug off. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's definitely a I'm going to try and go to some of these events this year for sure. Especially because now I'm working a job that allows me to do stuff like that. However, my reaction, I saw all these people getting excited on Twitter. Eric Arditi, who's a friend of the show. I think I saw on the Verge podcast. I saw all these people, who have been so upset with John Angelos and the lease not being signed. But then they announced the Caravan, and everybody's super excited. And it's just like, this is what John Angelos wants, right? Like, I know that he doesn't really have anything to do with the Caravan being announced. I know he's the owner of the team, but he delegates stuff like that as he should, as any owner should. But to me, it's like, all this is doing is placating fans. All this is doing is putting a little bit of a distraction to the fact that the lease agreement still isn't signed. And there's this misconception that I think the lease isn't going to be signed, that I possibly think that the Orioles are leaving. The Orioles are never leaving. They're never leaving. Camden Yards is exhibit 1A of why that team's never leaving. I know a lease agreement is getting signed, but I don't have it in me to get excited and be all rah-rah about a Caravan when a lease agreement isn't signed, the Orioles haven't gone down and gotten a legitimate top of the rotation piece, and they haven't gotten the middle of the order bat, which I think they need, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. To me, do that stuff. Then I'll get excited about a Caravan. And I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon, or as one person called me, mental midget. The same guy that told me not to be poopy pants Paul and to grow up. That's probably my favorite, poopy pants Paul.
It's got the alliteration in there. It's hard to.
The guy also last night called me a bozo. He called me. He told me I have monkey brains. This morning he called me a mental midget, and then he told me I have a dump in my pants.
The same guy said all of those things.
The same guy that told me to grow up said all those things about me. He also said that I'm not a real fan, which is cool. Because anybody that knows me knows that that's not the case at all. I had one guy tell me, he's like, I cannot believe how many Orioles. I see him at the gym. I've known him since I was a little kid. Lost my first tooth bobbing for apples at his 6th birthday party. Probably not 6. I was probably older, probably younger than that. But he sees me at the gym. He's like, man, you have an Orioles shirt for every day of the week. I was like, and then some, you know. But to me, the Caravan's cool. Fans love it. It's something that's a necessity, especially if you're not doing Fan Fest anymore. But I'm not going to get excited about things like that until you've given me reason to be excited about what's on the field. And that doesn't mean I think that the Orioles don't have a really good team, but we saw what happened with them in the playoffs. We saw that they need one more guy at the top of that rotation. Maybe it's not a guy at the top of the rotation. Maybe you go out and sign Lucas Giolito and you slot him in to be your 3rd or 4th starter. Maybe it's something like that. But I need to see them add another legitimate starting pitcher, and I need to see them sign a lease agreement. I know that they're going to. And in fact, there's an announcement that's expected tomorrow about the lease agreement. We're going to get into that here in just a matter of moments. But do those things first. For me, it's a pecking order. Sign a lease agreement, get a starting pitcher, then we'll get excited about a Caravan.
I get where you're coming from. I truly do. I also understand why your tweet would garner a similar reaction to that. This is why I don't really tweet anymore. It's because I don't know. The interaction has gotten wild. I don't want to be called a poopy pants Ryan or whatever the R version of that would be. But man, like I get wanting the lease to be signed. I get wanting the team to be improved. But man, I was standing out in the cold in 2009, excited for Fan Fest when the Orioles were in the midst of 12 straight losing seasons 14. At that point.
14, get it right, Ryan.
It would be 14, but in 2009 it was 11 or 12.
Oh, gotcha.
But like, so I also, being excited that they announced the Caravan, we knew it was there any doubt that we would have some type of Birdland Caravan or Fan Fest event? Like, they've been doing the Caravan for like 4 years now. So right. It's not like we were expecting it to not happen and they announced it and we're like, oh, look at this really cool thing the Orioles are going to do. They've been doing this. Mm-hmm. So on that level, I saw the announcement and I'm like, all right, cool. They're doing it again. Great. But it wasn't like, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But anyway, I mean, I just think it's a fun event. The offseason is dull for a lot of people because you can't actually go to Orioles games. There are no Orioles games to watch on TV. So I think it's great, regardless of what's going on around the team, whether they're coming off a 101-win season or a 115-loss season. It's exciting to have the fans come together, get to interact with the players. So on that side of it, I'm glad it's coming back. But I want the Orioles to sign the lease and I want them to, trade for or sign somebody really good to improve the team. But to me, those are not mutually exclusive. I can be excited about a Caravan while still being a little concerned about what's going on.
Well, yeah. And I think that that's what this guy was saying is that, like, I'm lumping them in as two things, as the same thing. I'm lumping them in as like, you shouldn't have a Caravan until no, have a Caravan. People, especially when your owner keeps put his foot in his mouth for the better part of a calendar year. Fans need a reason to be excited about the team aside from, the fact that they just won 101 games, in an off season that has been a lot of negative. It's something to get excited about, and that's super cool. To me, I know that they're two separate things. It's just like my priorities as a 39-year-old man expecting his first child might be a little bit different than, a 22-year-old guy, or, a 39-year-old guy who's not expecting his first child and just wants to go to drink beer with Adley Rutschman. That's cool. I'm not begrudging anybody for that. I would just rather, if they say, we're not doing a caravan, but we're happy to announce a 30-year lease, and we traded for Dylan Cease and we signed Cody Bellinger, I'd be like, all right, I'll trade.
Yeah, sure.
That's a good trade-off. I'd be cool with that. And I think that was my overall point, is that, like, give me something that's actually exciting to me, and then I'll get excited about something else that's a secondary thing in my mind. But maybe I'm just being a curmudgeon during this holiday season. Who the hell knows? You don't want to be a curmudgeon. If you're feeling hungry right now, do what I did this morning. Go to Royal Farms. You can feed your family gathering this holiday season with Royal Farms world famous chicken. Get an 8-piece mix for just $12 or a 10-piece dark for just $15 at your neighborhood Royal Farms. I'm not lying. I got a chicken slider and a chocolate glazed Krispy Kreme donut and this delicious Monster energy drink, which I used to swear I wasn't going to drink those things. And this recovery one, the iced tea lemonade, phenomenal. I know they're not paying us for that, but it's delicious. Yeah,
that sounds good. I was thinking as you were reading that this Chick-fil-A iced coffee really isn't that good.
Chick-fil-A is a sponsor of Press Box a lot of the times too, so you can do either.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, this is still delicious.
We mentioned the lease agreement, and all the following is from the Baltimore Banner. There is an announcement finally expected on Monday. It looks like it's going to be 15 years guaranteed, with the potential for 30 years. The Orioles have 4 years to develop the area around the ballpark. And then the development plan is not agreed upon by the 2027 deadline, the lease will only go 15 years. If it's agreed upon by then, it's 30 years. So it's basically, you're guaranteed 15 years here. If they can figure out a way to develop the land around the ballpark, you're going to get that 30-year lease. They will have access pretty quickly to the $600 million that they were given by the state. And they can start renovations on the ballpark itself immediately. Just like the Ravens, they announced all these renovations they're doing to M&T Bank Stadium. Right as soon as the Ravens' last home game of the season, whether that's the AFC Championship game or whether that's, the last game of the season against the Steelers, as soon as that's done, they're going to start renovations, which I think is super cool.
I think they're already starting. They have a banner or sign or something. I heard on 98 Rock this weekend or earlier this week. They have like a sign up that's like, "Please excuse our dust." So I think they're like already getting started in certain areas. Because if you want these renovations to be done by August of next year, you got to get them underway. So yeah, it's already starting. This might be a dumb question. Could the renovations to M&T Bank Stadium be related at all to this? Are they independent? Because I know they're both technically on Camden Yards.
No, so they each team got $600 million. So it was a bill that passed in the spring of 2022, like late winter, early spring 2022. I was working on Glenn's show at the time. We talked about it on the show, but it basically guaranteed $1.2 billion to the professional sports teams. So $600 million went to the Ravens. They only used like $425 million of that. The Orioles also get $600 million, which is crazy because then Angelos wanted an extra $300 million. He wanted to be able to develop privately on public land. Like, the whole thing was crazy, but they each got their own $600 million for renovation. So what the Ravens are doing has nothing to do with what the Orioles are doing, but they were agreed upon in the same bill. So the Orioles can get started pretty much as soon as they announce this lease agreement. That's the thing. The $600 million for each team was contingent upon the teams announcing lease extensions with the state. So because the Ravens did that back in April, they had access to do this almost immediately. The Orioles, as soon as they were to announce it, which hopefully is on Monday, they'll be hopefully allowed to get started as well. One of the things that I love about this, and again, there's never been a worry in my mind that the Orioles are ever leaving. Again, because Camden Yards, Exhibit 1A, it's a gem. It's a cathedral for professional baseball. There is a no relocation clause. So ownership could try to move the team, but the Maryland Stadium Authority has the right to pursue all legal remedies to recover liquidated damages, which would prove far too costly to relocate. And besides that, the state efforts to keep the club in Baltimore makes MLB approval highly unlikely. You have to get 75% owner approval to move a team. And there's just no way that Major League Baseball would allow that, especially because the state of Maryland is pressing so hard to keep the Orioles in Baltimore. The fact that they put a no relocation clause in the lease agreement in 1992, and it's in the new lease agreement, it just shows we don't want this team to leave. Nobody in this state wants this team to leave. They're never leaving. But it is cool that clause is in there again.
Yeah, and they never were leaving, and I think finally we can lay to rest the Nashville Orioles or Vegas Orioles or whatever people were coming up with in their minds that the Orioles were going to move to a different town. It was never going to happen, and now it's, once pen is to paper, it's official. But yeah, it's exciting, man. Camden Yards, like you said, is a cathedral, but there are necessary upgrades. I think their video board is the smallest in the league at this point. Their sound system is awful. So those are a couple big ticket items right there that need to be remedied, as far as I'm concerned, as soon as possible. But it's exciting that, we can finally stop talking about this, because it's been tiring. It's been twice now that we've been told there was an agreement in place, and then the next day told, actually, it's not really an agreement. They're still working out some details. So this one seems like, like you said, an announcement formally is expected on Monday. And, hopefully it's the real deal this time. It seems like it is. And I'm just ready to put all this dumb conversation to rest. Not that it's, not that it's, I don't want to say it's dumb, because it's given us things to talk about in the offseason, obviously. But the premise of it, that, the Orioles aren't going to renew their lease and then they're going to move out of town. That part of it.
That and it goes back to, first and foremost, the announcement that they made about a 30-year agreement having been reached the night that the Orioles clinched the division. That is reason 1A why me not getting excited about the Caravan is a thing. Because they used a moment when we were so excited about the team and everything that they've done on the field in 2023 to shine the light on John Angelos and make it about him, and kind of lie to us, like a really big lie. Yeah. So then when you announce this Caravan, when we still don't know if there's a lease agreement in place, to me, it was a distraction. And that's like the reason 1A why like the Caravan did less than nothing for me. But the team moved. So I'll never forget. I was on my way home on break from working at the restaurant that I still work at one day a week, and I was listening to the Bruce Cunningham show. And I love Bruce. Bruce is just a fun, happy guy. You know what I mean? I really enjoy Bruce Cunningham. But he talked about a guy who chose to remain anonymous, who said there was a group that was trying to buy the Orioles and move them to Vegas. And everybody got all up in arms. It bothered me for about 3 minutes until I thought to myself, Camden Yards exists. There's no chance that this is going to happen. There's no chance they're going to leave that ballpark empty. It's just not going to happen. And you mentioned, we can put the Vegas Orioles, the Nashville Orioles to rest. Yeah, we knew that we could have put that to rest before the rumors even started. There's going to be expansion. They're going to expand to 32 teams in Major League Baseball. And you already know that Oakland is moving to Vegas. Where do you think a team's going to move to? Where do you think a new team is going to be? Nashville. They're going to get an expansion team. All they have to do is build a stadium. So, like, to me, we've known for years now they're expanding to 32 teams. So that alone tells you, why are they going to expand to 32 teams and also move a team? Where else are they going to put a team? I think it might be Montreal and Nashville, but it definitely wasn't going to be the Orioles. That's for sure. Right. And finally, once this thing is announced on Monday, we don't want to count our chickens before they're hatched. But once this thing is announced on Monday, all those people that think the team is moving, like the guy who blamed me for not stopping the wall from being built in left field, because the Orioles wanted to put such an ugly stadium in place, they had no choice but to move the team. This was an actual thing that this guy said, and he blamed me for not stopping it. We can put all that to rest finally. Let's talk a little bit about this.
While we're on the subject, Paul, can we get a damn All-Star game, please?
They're going to have to settle that massive dispute, man. And it was already ruled in favor of the Nationals, and the Orioles didn't want to pay them. But now they're trying to figure out. Now they're going back. This was also announced in the Baltimore Banner, and I originally was going to put in the notes. I was like, we don't need to talk about this. It's essentially the Orioles and Nationals have gone to an independent judge to try and figure out exactly how much in television rights fees each team needs to be paid out from 2017 through 2021, I believe it was, or maybe it's 2012 to 2017, something like that. And so they're waiting on an announcement on that. Hey, get out of there. The dog's getting this stuff. He doesn't.
I have a cat trying to dig his way under my door right now too.
So once the whole Masson thing is settled, because basically the Orioles, the Orioles were like up against Major League Baseball. Once that's settled, they're going to get an all-star game. Once they have improvements, because you mentioned it yourself, they have the small scoreboard in Major League Baseball. The sound system is terrible. Once the Orioles make these renovations to the ballpark, you're going to see an all-star game come back to Baltimore.
Do you think we get any right-handed hitters in the home run derby when the all-star game is eventually in Baltimore?
Oh man, well they juice those balls anyway.
Yeah, but
so,
you can crank one 400 feet to left center field, and it's going to hit the top of the wall.
Yeah, well, don't hit it to left center field then.
Oh yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah, I love it when people talk about like Chris Davis. Why don't you just hit the ball to left field, bro? You try intentionally putting a baseball anywhere you want on a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Go ahead, tell me that you can just hit it to left field.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but it's not.
Dude, I need a home run derby with 8 lefties just trying to crank baseballs off the warehouse. And guys would do it too. I watched Joey Gallo during batting practice once hit 2 balls off the warehouse on the fly in a span of 3 swings.
Really?
Yeah. I was right behind the Rangers dugout. I think I was trying to get like Adrian Beltre's autograph or something because it was near the end of his career. And Gallo was at the plate. And yeah, 3 swings, 2 of them hit. And they weren't cheapos either. They were like above the awning. They were shots, but I need to see some lefties in a derby at Camden Yards because that warehouse is going to be peppered. I can promise that.
I've never seen it. I was at the game this past year when Shohei started and he hit that monstrous home run off like the top of the gate in right center field. Like that is a shot.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then Gunnar hit the longest home run by a left-handed hitter in Camden Yards. The longest home run by anybody to hit Utah Street in Camden Yards history. Gunnar, 462 feet last summer. I think Gunnar can hit the warehouse. Can you imagine Shohei coming here to an all-star game in Baltimore? Like that would be a home run derby. He would 100% have to take part.
Oh yeah.
Just somebody's hitting that warehouse if the Orioles get an all-star game here. And, they got to make these renovations first. And while we're talking about that, Ryan, I know I didn't put it in the notes, but let's talk about some renovations we'd like to see happen. We already mentioned the scoreboard. We already mentioned the PA system. For me, one of the first things I think they should do, I think that they need to make it an open concourse all the way around the field.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, I love that idea. You get it at stadiums like Nats Park. I don't like Nats Park. I think it's objectively a bad place for a baseball game. Mm-hmm. But the open concourse layout is pretty awesome. It's nice to be able to, you're waiting in line for something to eat. And instead of watching it on a TV that may or may not be working, you're actually able to see it on the field. So I'm with you there.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I love about PNC Park is they have that in Pittsburgh. They have that open concourse, and they also have it. And this is why I actually put PNC Park a little bit above Camden Yards. Sorry, everybody. I put it a little bit above Camden Yards in my stadium rankings because they have that open concourse, and they have it in right field where they have a big scoreboard just like the Orioles do, but they have the seats angled so nobody has obstructed view from that scoreboard. In Camden Yards, if you're sitting in the bleachers and you're sitting in section 90, at a certain point, you can't see right field. Yeah. You're sitting in your seats and you cannot see right field. And there should not be a point in that stadium, a place in that stadium where you can't see a third of the field. Yeah. It shouldn't happen. And I think that's something the Orioles are probably going to address as well. So I think it's going to be an open concourse, obviously the scoreboard and the sound system, but an open concourse. And I think they're going to do something about those obstructed view seats in right field. You cannot charge people money to sit in seats where they can't see the field. That's ridiculous to me.
I agree. Another thing I think would be cool is some kind of club area, if not like a little restaurant in the left field wall. I don't know how feasible that is, but you see it at some stadiums, and I think that's a really cool idea personally. To be able to utilize that space. It's right now it's just a big wall with 3 advertisements, and one of them's for the Lake Erie College of something. It's like, why are we I don't know. Anyway, I think that'd be a really cool idea to have some kind of like the fence as opposed to the wall where you can, see into it and out of it and, sit in there, have some food and watch the game.
That would be really cool. Really cool. My buddy also said to me back during the summer that he thinks that the Orioles should put up like when you're like out on Utah Street or you're like coming in through the picnic area and you can't really see, have some kind of giant screen showing the game. Some kind of giant screen, like where that stairwell is after you get past the picnic area, have a giant screen on that big wall. And then over on Utah Street, where the wall is up against those seats on Utah, on the flag court where they sell beer there should be you have space for a big screen right there too, so that you can see what's going on with the game if you haven't gotten to your seats yet. Because a lot of times, man, I'll be walking in and if we couldn't find parking or somebody was late to our pickup or something like that, and you're walking in, it's already the first inning and you don't know that Grayson Rodriguez is just mowed down the side. Right. I want to be able to see that. So I think that those are, go ahead.
You can hear the crowd reaction, but unless you can physically see from where you're standing or walking the main scoreboard and you see something change, whether it's the batter, you see like a 0 for 1 or a 1 for 1, it's so hard to discern what's actually happening. Because like I mentioned before, half the TVs in the concourse area don't even work. They're not even on half the time.
Yeah. So, and they're on a delay too, which is crazy to me that they're on a delay in the stadium where the action's actually happening. So that's definitely something that I think should be brought into consideration at the very least. Because I remember 2012, I brought my dad to the Cal Ripken statue game, and I went to the wrong office to pick him up. I forgot he had moved to offices, and I went to the opposite side of town, so we didn't get down there till like the Orioles were batting in the bottom of the first. And as we're walking in the picnic area, is when Matt Wieters hit his 3-run homer in the first inning. And I saw the stadium go nuts, and I saw everybody waving their orange flags. It was still to this day the most beautiful sight I've seen in an Orioles stadium ever. It was incredible. But I had to run and leave my dad in the dust just to see what was happening. If we had had that big screen on the wall there, I would have been able to see it. And it needs to be live, a live feed, not a delayed feed. But they'll figure it out. They will certainly figure it out.
It's amazing that as wonderful as Camden Yards is as a stadium, there are so many ways it could improve. Like it's almost crazy to think. Like we just watched a 101 win baseball team, and we're talking about the ways that they need to get better with a middle of the order bat or an ace pitcher. It's the same thing with the stadium. We have without a doubt a top 5, if not top 3, if not top 1 stadium in Major League Baseball, and yet here we are talking about ways that it needs to get better. And it's not a crazy thought. But it's kind of a lesson to people who are like, oh, just, be okay with, the way things are. It's like, well, if it could get better, why not push for it a little bit,
Right. And
there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you less of a fan if you see a 101 win team and say, they could have won 105. That doesn't mean we're disappointed with 101 wins. It's just saying there are a couple spots where they could have tacked on a few more, I don't think that makes you any less of a fan.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does not. We're going to dive into that here in just a second. I just want to remind you, today's show is brought to you by Help My Gambling Problem. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. That's 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. And yeah, look, we all know that the Orioles last year, they won 101 games. They got that first round bye through the wild card series, the number 1 team in the American League, number 2 in all of baseball. And then they haven't been swept since May of 2022. And then they get swept in their first postseason series at home since 2012. Since 2014. Definitely a frustrating thing to see. And that's why we want them to add to the team so it doesn't happen again. And number 1 at the top of the priority list is adding a starting pitcher. You saw Grayson Rodriguez go out there. He didn't make it out of the second inning. You saw Dean Kramer go out there. He didn't make it out of the second inning. The Orioles found themselves behind early by 5 or 6 runs in each of those games, and it put them behind the 8 ball, and they didn't win a game in the postseason. So why haven't they made a deal yet? We saw Shohei Ohtani sign that monster deal with the Dodgers this past week. Actually, it happened a matter of hours after our show ended last Saturday. Thanks, guys. Couldn't have done that like early Saturday morning or late Friday night. Appreciate you. And now it seems like the world's waiting on Yoshida Yamamoto to sign his deal. And it seems like, the White Sox, for example, the Orioles are rumored to be in talks with the White Sox about Dylan Cease, but it seems like the White Sox want to wait until some of these big free agent starting pitchers are off the board so that the teams that need a starting pitcher might be a little bit more desperate and offer more for a guy like Dylan Cease. John Mioli wrote an article for the Baltimore Banner. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to the Baltimore Banner, like if you're not, at least like checking out their sports reporting, you are missing out. John Mioli is one of the best writers in the game for the Orioles. Andy Kotzka is also absolutely fantastic. You guys need to be subscribed to the Baltimore Banner. It is worth its weight in gold. They do incredible work. But anyway, this article that John Mioli wrote is saying it could be difficult for the Orioles to trade for starting pitching because the trades oftentimes seem one-sided. He referenced the Lucas Giolito trade at the deadline for the Angels this past season, and how the Angels gave up their number 1 and number 2 prospects to get Giolito. The number 1 and number 2 prospects for the Angels would be like maybe top 10 prospects for the Orioles. And what teams are seeing is if this guy got these top 2 prospects, then Dylan Cease or Corbin Burns or Jesus Luzardo should be able to get similar prospects from the Orioles. Well, similar prospects from the Orioles are like the number 7 or number 8 prospects in the system. Like nobody, like you look at Darryl Hernandez, for example, who went to the Athletics last year this past season for Cole Irvin. He was the Orioles, not their number 6 prospect. He was their 6th best infield prospect. And he immediately became a top 5 overall prospect in the Athletics system. You're not comparing apples to oranges here. Jackson Holliday, number 1 prospect for the Orioles, also happens to be a number 1 prospect in all of baseball. Other teams don't have these guys. So for the Orioles, they're behind the 8 ball because on paper, you're only willing to give us your number 7 or 8 prospect. You aren't realizing that the number 7 or 8 prospect for the Orioles is like number 2 or number 3 for you all.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Any properly run Major League Baseball team with a scouting department that's worth anything doesn't give a rat's behind about where prospects rank on anybody's list. Top 100 in baseball, top 30 in an organization. They should not care. And any well-run team does not care. It's about how they've been scouted, what tools they have, and individual interest. It's why you see when, the Major League Baseball first-year player draft happens every year, there are surprises. And then those teams that make those surprises say, well, he was the top guy on our board. Why? It's because their scouting department looked at this guy and determined that they thought he was better or had the potential to be better than everybody else. It's the same thing with players that are already in the minor league system across baseball. They have scouting departments that go out and watch other minor league teams. You go to any minor league baseball game, there are going to be scouts from other teams sitting behind the plate with a radar gun, sitting behind, first base to watch the hitters. It happens at every stadium. Now, the numbers don't matter. I've talked to people in front offices who have said, I asked Matt Blood, do you guys put any weight into where Major League Baseball ranks the Orioles farm system or the Orioles players? He doesn't care. Not at all. He's the director of player development. So, you think about it like that, and it doesn't matter. A team isn't going to, look at a trade offer. Let's say the Marlins are talking to the Orioles about Jesus Luzardo, and they see us offer our number 7 and number 10 prospects, whoever they are. And then another team offers their number 2 and 3. They're putting no more stock into what another team's players are ranked than they are ours. It's about, do we like this player? Do we like this combination of players more than we like that combination of players? And so the pundits that are ranking these guys, their opinion, not to undermine their profession because it's important, but to Major League Baseball teams, it does not matter. So I don't necessarily agree with the premise that it makes it harder for the Orioles to make a trade like that. I think it's just a matter of, can we offer the right guys in this?
And how much are you willing to part with? Like to get a top of the rotation starter in a trade, you're gonna have to give up something. You see a lot of these mock trades where it's like the Orioles should give up, Joey Ortiz, Cade Povich, and then Judd Fabian to get Dylan Cease. And those are 3 names I just came up with out of thin air. Like I don't know that there's been a trade proposal like that from a fan. These things aren't realistic. You're not gonna get 2 years of control with Dylan Cease for peanuts. It's just not gonna happen. So you're gonna have to. Sorry, Bruce, you're being a butthole. You're gonna have to give up something to get something. Now, look, you're not trading Jackson Holiday. You'd have to really blow me away to be willing to part with Samuel Basayo. And Kobe, guys like Kobe Mayo, Heston Kjerstad, you'd have to blow me away for me to be willing to part with guys like that too. But you're also going to have to say, hey, you're getting the number 1 starting pitcher. I'm willing to give up Colton Cowser and maybe Heston Kjerstad if that's what it's going to take to get this guy. Honestly, I think Joey Ortiz is a bigger trade chip than people think. Because I've said this before, I'll say it again. He could start at shortstop for half the teams in Major League Baseball right now. I truly believe in that guy's skill set defensively and offensively. I think he's got great bat speed, great bat to ball skills. I think he's a really top trade chip for the Orioles. So it's going to take something to get to these players. We'll see what it's going to take. I thought a trade would have happened by now, but again, the whole baseball world is still waiting on now Yamamoto, and then it's going to be now we're waiting on Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. It seems like it's never ending, but I think something's coming down the pipe here. Would you be okay with the Orioles maybe not getting a top of the rotation guy, maybe ending up signing? I can't remember the name of the Japanese pitcher, but it was rumored that the Orioles had a multi-year offer on the table for a guy who throws like 6 pitches, but his fastball tops out at like 90 miles an hour. This was like 2-3 weeks ago. It was out there that the Orioles had an offer on the table, but nobody could confirm it on in the States. So they didn't do much reporting on it. But would you be okay with the Orioles, signing a guy who's maybe a solid 4 or 5, with the idea that your top of rotation already has 2 aces in Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, and then your number 3 is a guy who's thrown a no-hitter and been an all-star in John Means?
I don't think this is the answer you're expecting, but yeah, I would 100% be okay with that. And the reason being is, what you're pretty certain you have in Kyle Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez. You know what John Means brings to the table. You're potentially looking at DL Hall as a starter option, potentially looking at Tyler Wells as a starter option. Dean Kramer is certainly going to be in the mix. Cole Irvin is in consideration. And then you have a few guys who are working their way up the system. And what you really need is rotation depth. And I think the Orioles already have that. So if we find ourselves in a position where, we're signing a back-end rotation guy to go into the season, and then under the idea that if Kyle Bradish takes a step back, if Grayson Rodriguez isn't quite yet who we think he's going to be, if Dean Kramer falters or Tyler Wells can only work from the bullpen or DL Hall doesn't work out as a starter, then you're approaching the trade deadline with, okay, we are going to go out and get an ace. If that is the mindset that the team has going into the season, I'm going to be okay with that, because we did just win 101 games last year and we didn't lose anybody notable, at least as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I'm content with the season could start tomorrow and I'd be happy with the Orioles' outlook going into it. Now, you have to be prepared if things start to falter, if things are not going well, you have to be prepared to make that big move. So whether it happens this offseason or during the season next year when we're fighting for another American League East title with the team that just got Juan Soto, or the team that might get Yamamoto, and other moves are certainly going to happen, then you have to be willing to make that move during the season. So whether it happens now or later, I would like it to happen, but I'm fine with how things stand at the current time.
I tend to agree with you. I have been saying that I want the Orioles to go out and get another 1 starting pitcher, Go out and get a middle of the order bat. But it's not like this team is returning a bunch of scrubs, right? Like you said, they won 101
Right.
games. The only
Exactly.
guys that they've lost are Kyle Gibson and his 4.79 ERA, and Jordan, not Jordan Hicks, Aaron Hicks, and
Aaron Hicks. Yeah.
oh my gosh, see my Adam Frazier. Thank
Adam
you. I
Frazier.
kept wanting to call him Ryan Flaherty. I kept wanting to call him Ryan Flaherty.
I mean, it's not
that's
not far
Ryan,
off.
that's not his name, but he's like close, right? Adam Frazier, Aaron Hicks, Kyle Gibson. Yeah, you're losing those guys, but you're going to get, a Gunnar Henderson that's going to be an MVP candidate. Adley Rutschman's going to be another year seasoned. Jackson Holliday's likely making this team out of spring training. I think Jordan Westburg's going to be a beast for this team. You're getting like some, and then Connor Norby, that he's just such a good hitter, and then, like I said, another season out of Kyle Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez and John Means back to full health, being a full go from spring training on. It's going to be an exciting year for the Orioles, regardless of what they do moving forward from here. And like you said, if the guy that they bring in for that rotation is a Kyle Gibson type of guy and it doesn't work out like we want it to, you go out and you make that trade at the deadline. Maybe Corbin Burns becomes more likely for you because you only get a couple months out of him and you don't need to go up the world to get him. There's going to be options for this team. It's the same argument that you have when people are getting upset about the Craig Kimbrell signing. Like, guys, if he sucks as a closer, he's not going to have a 4-month leash and they're going to have to flush a toilet down the season. They'll know 3-4 weeks into the season whether or not they can probably sooner than that, whether or not they can trust this guy as their everyday closer. If they can't, they'll make a move so it doesn't ruin the season. So look, they're in good hands. You just want them to have the best team on the field possible from the outset, get off to a hot start and never look back. I think that's where the Orioles are. That's where they should be. It's an exciting time to be an Orioles fan. We just want what's best for this team. And a couple things I do want to talk about. I mentioned on Twitter that I want the Orioles to go out and get a middle of the order bat. Somebody said the Orioles don't need a middle of the order bat. How do you feel about that, Ryan? Because I love Ryan Mountcastle and Ryan O'Hearn, and I love Anthony Santander and Austin Hayes, but none of these guys are 3-4 hitters. All of these guys are 5, 6, 7 hitters. I would love for the Orioles to make, even if that guy that you get is like a Justin Turner. I know he's 39 years old, but he's coming off a season where he set a career high in RBIs. He hit like 40 doubles. He hit like 25 home runs. That's a guy who you can place into the 4 slot in your order and be comfortable with the fact that he's going to drive in runs and get on base. Your thoughts on that?
I have mixed feelings about Justin Turner.
Not necessarily even Justin Turner, but
in a specific way. I sent out a tweet, I think it was during the playoffs, where I said Craig Kimbrell reminds me a lot of Justin Turner in the sense that it feels like they've both been in their mid-30s for the last 10 years. We already signed Kimbrell. I'm not sure I want to add Turner to the mix too. But to your point, I agree with you. Mountcastle, O'Hearn, Santander, those guys are very good hitters. They are not cleanup, 4-slot, 370 on base, potential, 40 home run, 120 RBI hitters. That's just not who they are. I think you do need that guy in the middle of your lineup. And we saw it as a weakness with the Orioles. We had plenty of situations last year where, either Adley or Gunnar would get on base in the first inning, and then we'd see a pop-up or a ground ball double play. And that's going to happen no matter who's in the lineup, but it seemed to happen a little more than you want. You've got the table setters at the top of the lineup in Gunnar and Adley in whichever order they are in. I prefer Gunnar and then Adley, but that's just me. Okay, good. But yeah, I do think you need, sure, Mountcastle could push for 35 homers. Sure, Santander could push for 35 homers. Ryan O'Hearn might hit 300 again. We don't know. But none of those guys are going to get on base at a 370 clip. And I think you need that guy in the heart of the order to hit for power, drive in runs, and get on base. Because if your number 4 hitter is putting up a 335 on base percentage, that's not a scary middle of the lineup. It's just not. And I love these guys. I feel bad saying that because I love Tony Taters. I love Mountie. But like you said, they're
Yeah.
5, 6
I look at, you have guys in the system that could potentially be that guy for you. Heston Kjerstad could be that guy for you potentially. I really believe Jordan Westberg could be that guy for you, because I don't necessarily think that your cleanup hitter needs to be a 40 home run guy, but he needs to be a guy that gets on base at a 370 clip. I think Adley could hit cleanup for this team. I don't want to see Adley batting leadoff ever again. I don't want to see him batting second. For me, I think that Jackson Holiday could be your leadoff hitter. I think that Gunnar Henderson could hit 2 or 3 for you. I think Jordan Westberg could hit 2 or 3 for you. And then if you have Adley batting fourth, and then you have Santander and Mountcastle and Kjerstad, like, your lineup becomes that much scarier. And maybe that happens because you have Jackson Holiday on the roster right now. Maybe it happens because Jordan Westberg takes that step forward that I expect him to take. And, Heston Kjerstad becomes that 35 homer guy that he looks like he could be. Man, when he hits the ball, it goes. I mean, the Orioles have guys, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, and Heston Kjerstad have some of the highest exit velocities in this system that you're ever going to see. And if they are all clicking at the big league level, that is scary. Go ahead.
And we're not even talking about Kobe Mayo yet. That dude is a bopper and a half, and he could be on the major league roster as early as June, July if he gets off to a hot start. We might not even have space for him. Who really knows at this point? But yeah, there are plenty of guys in the system who could be that guy.
You can't depend on them to be that guy right now. They have to get to that point. You don't just come from AAA, step foot onto a major league diamond, and suddenly you're that guy. That's like Albert Pujols. That's like, it's a rarity. We can name the guys off the top of our head because it's so rare that you automatically know who they are. Like, it just doesn't happen. So,
And this is one of the reasons, Paul, that I agree with you that we need a middle of the order bat, a big, bopper like that. And I agree that we should go out and get a top tier starting pitcher. But on the same token, this is why I said I would be okay with the season starting tomorrow with the state the Orioles are currently in and be satisfied and optimistic. And it's because, you could list so many different possibilities of like a 1 through 6 in your lineup. It could be Holiday, Westberg, Gunnar, Adley, Mayo, Kjerstad. And that's a potentially dominant 1 through 6. That's not even including Mountcastle, Santander, Mullins, Norby, Hayes. There are so many Cowser. There are so many guys who could be the guy, who could be dudes, as you like to say. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, these are guys who are either knocking on the door, have just barely busted through, still have some things to prove. So we don't know if any of them are going to be that guy in 2024. I have optimism that several of them could be, but until we see it, we don't know. And that's why I do think it's important that the Orioles address the middle of the lineup. But man, if they don't, we've got guys. They've got some potential dudes.
And I also think it's important to say that they're not going to. They're not going to go sign the middle of the order bat. I think we both know that's the case. That's not going to happen. Yeah. But I think that if you want to ensure that your lineup is going to be strong top to bottom until the guys that we just mentioned are ready to be that guy, it wouldn't hurt to go get, maybe even a JD Martinez to DH for the first 4 months of the year. But that guy is so unrealistic simply because of the fact that they love versatility and that he's a guy you have to play every day as your DH. So it takes some of that flexibility away. We are running super behind. I want to remind you, today's show is brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio's charity event. You can join Glenn Clark Radio and Ravens defensive tackle Michael Pierce Monday night at Chick-fil-A Nottingham Square. That's 5198 Campbell Boulevard in Nottingham Square Shopping Center. They'll be collecting new unopened toiletries and underwear to help the men and women currently in Baltimore's Helping Up mission. according to that one guy on Twitter, I probably need some new underwear. Anyone who brings out at least $25 worth of donations or makes a $25 cash, Venmo, PayPal donation can get a picture and autograph from Michael Pierce. That's this Monday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Chick-fil-A Nottingham Square. The Daniels 420 has a tweet that he put out to us. O's and Brewers line up so much. Williams and Burns for Povich, Norby, Beavers, and Stowers. I don't think that's enough to get it done.
I agree. I agree that the Orioles and Brewers line up very well. I don't think that's enough to get. I'm not sure that's enough to get just Burns. You're throwing Williams in there. You're gonna have to give up a Kowser or a Westberg, I think, in that kind of trade.
I think you're gonna have to give up more than that because Williams is under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah, I do think these two teams line up, but I'm not sure that's close.
Yeah, Williams and Burns. You're probably gonna have, honestly, you're gonna have to give up a Basayo, a Kerstad, and an Ortiz, along with Beavers and Stowers and Povich, if you want to get both of those guys in one trade. I mean, we saw Jim Bowden saying it was going to take the Orioles giving up, Kowser, Kerstad, Mayo, and then like Povich just for Burns. I think he threw DL Hall in there too. Like it's going to take a lot just to get Burns. You're throwing in arguably the best reliever in the National League. On top of that, that's too rich for the Orioles' taste, in my opinion. Like they do line up really well with the Brewers. They do, and that would be a great trade to get both. I don't think the Orioles are looking for Williams anymore because they got Kimbrel, and it's going to be just way too much to get. We ended last show talking about how we wanted to get back to somebody's ask about Patrick Sandoval. Patrick Sandoval, this is a guy who took a step back in 2023. Posting a 4.11 ERA and 4.18 FIP in 28 starts after posting a 2.91 ERA and 3.09 FIP in 27 starts in 2022. Just turned 27 in mid-October. He's also under team control for 3 more seasons. I know that many believe the Angels should be rebuilding at this point after, losing out on Shohei Ohtani. Mike Trout's not getting any younger, and they already said they're not going to trade him. You've got Anthony Rendon, who's untradeable at this point in his career. I don't think that the Angels are looking at themselves as in rebuild mode. And even if they are, you build around a guy like Patrick Sandoval. You don't trade him. You trade for guys like him. 27 years old with 3 years of team control. I don't see why the Angels would be willing to deal somebody like him.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree there. I think he'd be a good fit on the Orioles, but I don't see the Angels moving someone of his potential as, in the position that they're in. I will say, though, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, there were reports circulating that the Marlins are at least considering Luzardo as a potential trade. That's a guy I would love on the Orioles. And I'm not going to talk about it too much, but Jesus Luzardo as the Orioles number, he'd probably slot in as a 2 or a 3, just based on experience. He's a guy who I think would benefit a lot from pitching in Camden Yards for half of his starts.
We just talked about Sandoval. He's a guy who Luzardo just turned 26 at the end of September. He's got 3 years of team control, 3.58 ERA and 32 starts this past year after a 3.32 ERA and 18 starts the previous season. That's a guy that the Orioles could trade for, but how much is it going to cost to get a pitcher like that? And would the Orioles be willing to give up those prospects? This is something that people have been talking about Luzardo since last offseason. How likely is it? I just don't know at this point. You're going to have to give up. I think you're going to have to give up more for him. I forgot to switch the arrow to the notes page. You're going to have to give up more for him than you'd have to give up for Dylan Cease, in my opinion. So I just don't know.
I think it'd be comparable, but yeah. I agree.
Want to remind you today's show brought to you by Project Game Day and the Tyus Bowser Show. You can join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, and Femi Ayanbadejo right here on the same press box pages for Project Game Day following tomorrow night's Ravens-Jags matchup. And join press box and great ace memorabilia for Tyus Bowser Show this Tuesday night at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill on Harford Road. Both shows are brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. We buried the lead a little bit. You have about 30 seconds to talk about this. We buried the lead intentionally because I'm so tired of talking about it. Shohei Ohtani, 10 years, $700 million with the Dodgers. He's deferring all but $20 million. He's making $2 million a year for the life of the contract, and then they have to pay him $68 million each of the next 10 years following the end of this contract. So they'll be paying him $68 million a year to be retired, essentially. Your thoughts on the Shohei deal as quick as you can.
Dan Duquette said that the contract made him uncomfortable.
No way.
I think is hilarious because it's very on brand. But that's all I really have to say about it. Good for him getting paid. But Poopy Pants Paul, go ahead and sign us off.
Poopy Pants Paul has to say that I think it's really bad for baseball that the Dodgers kind of get let off the hook there with such a massive contract by only having to pay him $2 million. I know that with the luxury tax, you're going to have to report like 45, 46 million starting, I think, like 2 years from now. But the fact that they're able to pay all these guys that much money, go over that luxury tax threshold, they go out and they trade for Tyler Glasnow. They're going to give him reported 5 years, $135 million. Good luck with that. He can't stay on the field. To me, it's, there's got to be some common ground there. I get deferred money, but deferring $680 million of the $700 million contract is asinine to me. And the collective bargaining agreement allows for it, but I don't think that it should. I think it'll be addressed at the next CBA, which is, still 3 years away. So that's going to do it for us here on the Bat Around. Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in and to all of our sponsors. Without either of you, we do not have a show. Thank you to Ryan for taking time out of his Saturday morning. And as always, until next week, see ya.